All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the channel. Welcome to Some Random Guy Speaks. I'm your host, Tony G. And we're about to do another live stream tonight. Remember, I promised you, I said I'm going to do one on age gap dating abroad. And I am going to promise the show must go on. And I'm not going to wait for people to come in. They'll just have to catch up. These days, yeah, like I said before, I'm going to go into the views and all that stuff again. It is what it is. So, yeah, so we're going to go ahead and dive right into it. I put that thumbnail up for a reason and a purpose. Because some of you guys can relate to that guy. You know what I'm saying? And, you know, guys that's 40, 50 years old, man, they're really taking care of themselves for the most part of it. Looking good. You know what I'm saying? And he got an Asian woman on his arm. I did that on purpose, right? Now, that could be any woman, black woman, white woman. I wanted to mix it up a little bit, you know what I'm saying? So, again, this on me. I don't mean to offend, but we're going to be talking about this, ladies and gentlemen, you know? So, here it is. So, we're going to go ahead and dive right into it. Let me see. Anybody else coming in? They just have to catch up. Look like I have one person in the room, though, you know, but it's all good. So welcome to the podcast show. I am your host, Some Random Guy Speaks. This is Tony. This show where we'll dive into the relationships of love and cultural experiences across the globe. I'm your host, Tony, and today we'll be talking about something that has been on my mind for a while, which is age gap dating, right? But with the twist, doing it abroad, right? Whether you thought about it or are curious about it's like this, right? In other words, right? We're going to explore the dynamics, right? The perceptions, the cultural differences that comes with dating someone much younger or much older. You know what I'm saying? So that you while living in a different country. So let's go ahead and jump right into it, you know, so we're going to jump right to it. So the appeal of age gap dating abroad, right? First off, let's talk about why age gap relationships, right? Those were, those were what we call in the significant difference in age between partnerships, right? Seems to be more common or even more accepted in certain parts of the world. Now we've all heard the stereotypes of an older man with a much younger woman, or an older woman with a much older man, which is called cougars. But why does this dynamic seem to pop up more often than in other places outside of our home or countries? Well, let's go right into it. Well, age gap dating abroad isn't a new concept, but social acceptance, it can be what we call in many cultures, the idea of an older partner, particularly one who might have more life experience, right? Financial stability is another thing, or different social expectations might be seen as a benefit. It's less about judgment and more about the idea of compatibility rather than the rigid rules about aging. Take countries like Thailand, for example. It's not uncommon to see a relationship with a significant age gap, and often these relationships are sharpened, right, or shaped by different cultural understandings of romance and what people expect from a partner. It might be less about traditional dating norms than more about the role of financial stability or emotional maturity, right? This can be a huge factor in places where generational gaps, all right? Let me say it again. Get my mind thought right. This can be a huge factor in a place where generational gaps influence how relationships are viewed. There we go, right? Get my mind right. But it's not limited to one part of the world. Even in Europe, right? South America, there are certain cultural nuances, right? In Spain or Italy, for example, you might find relationships where one partner is a quite bit younger or older, right? And it's not necessarily a deal breaker. People often value the experience or life stage of their partner over their actual age. Segment number 2, breaking the stereotypes, right? Now, let's be honest. Age gap relationships can be a little controversial, right? Especially in the Western world, like America, right? Where everybody judges you or prejudges you, right? There's tons of misconceptions from assuming older partners are taking advantage of a young one, right? We done heard that before, right? To the idea that the younger partner just want money or status. You know how many times I've heard that, especially from women. I know I've heard this stereotypes, right, of assumptions, and to some extent, right? I get it. People are quick to judge something they don't fully understand. I get it. Or just out of straight up jealousy, right? But I think a lot of people forgot that relationships are complex, no matter how old you are. I mean, if you're dating abroad, there's so much more going on just your partner's age. Think about that. There are language barriers, cultural differences, different expectations around romance, and the sheer fact that you're navigating love in an entirely new context. So it's important to take a step back to think about what we're really seeing when we look at these age gap relationships in a foreign country. Segment number 3, here's the pros and cons. Like any relationship, there are pros and cons. And let me tell you, the age gap dating abroad isn't any different. So let's break it down. What are the upsides, right? What should you be mindful of, right? First, the pros. Life experience in age gap relationships. The older partner might bring a lot of wisdom, emotional maturity, and life experiences to the table. If you're someone who have traveled a lot or has lived through challenges, sometimes you just want a partner who understands that. Different expectations in some cultures. Older individuals might be a little more flexible or open to relationships that don't fit his traditional mold, which is true. This can create a sense of freedom where people feel less pressure to confront or to conform to social norms. Let's focus on physical appearance. With age comes great enthusiast, right? On personality and compatibility rather than just looks. If you're in a country where superficially might be less important to you, right? Might find more genuine connections, right? Now here comes the cons. Cultural disconnect. Even though you might be, let's say, connected to someone from a different culture, sometimes your life stages are just too different. If you are in your 20s and your partner's in their 50s, there might be some type of fundamental life stage differences. These, like kids, career goals, right? Retirement plans, could be a thing if you need to negotiate. Judgment from others. I can stress this enough, right? As progressive as some cultures are, there's still stigmas around age gap relationships, especially when there is a notable power imbalance. You might face negative reactions from locals family, friends. We all been there before, right? And that sometimes could be prepared for, right? Power dynamics, right? When there's a significant age gap, there can be a imbalance in terms of power, financial, emotional, or social. These power dynamics can create challenges in communications and decision making. Absolutely. Segment number 4, right? Practical tips for age gap dating abroad. Here we go. So let me say this. If you're considering jumping into an age gap relationship while living abroad, you should keep in mind, here are a few tips. First of all, communication or communicate openly. The key to any relationship, but especially with age gap relationships, is clear, right? Honest communications, being upfront about your expectations, values, and goals, and listen to your partner's perspective, right? That's the first important thing. Number 2, understand the cultural context, right? Dating norms vary widely by country. Make sure you understand the local cultural expectations around relationships before diving in. What might seem norm in your home country may be a total difference abroad, which is true. Number 3, don't ignore red flags. This is a huge one, right? Age gap dating relationships can sometimes have an unhealthy dynamic, particularly if one person is using the other for emotional, financial, or social gains. Always trust your gut and keep your eye out for warning signs, right? Number 4, be patient in judgment. Yes, people might judge you, that's true, but don't let others people's opinions get to you, right? This is where a person gotta have a strong mind. As long as you're being respectful, you know. So if you're being being respectful to your partner, the age gap really shouldn't matter. You're building your own relationship, not theirs, right? Number 5, take things slow. I'm going to say this again, take things slow. Like any relationship, take your time. Don't rush into it, especially when navigating cultural differences. Getting to know someone is important no matter how old they are, right? And these are basically the things here, guys, in regards to age gap dating, right? So what's going to be a problem for some guys? Some of you guys are not feeling it, and I get it. You probably want someone a little more closer to your age, even if you're going abroad. I get it. That's cool. I ain't got a problem with that. Some of you guys don't even have a problem with it at all, because over there, it's pretty much the norm. Like Thailand, Philippines, Cambodia, Vietnam, it's pretty much the norm over there. Some of the African countries, pretty much the norm. You know what I'm saying? So you may do pretty good. But if you ever have to bring her back here for a visit, you know, some people may look at you a little differently because they're going to judge anyway. You know what I'm saying? Especially women. Women, if you're, let's say, 40 years old and a 40-year-old woman close to your age, she's going to look at the young girl and the first thing she's going to say, she's just using him for the money. He's got that money or status or whatever the case may be. But it's going to be usually one of those 3 things. That's what they're going to look at. But like I said, you're not living for other people. You know, if she's making you feel good, she's getting up in the morning. And a lot of these women abroad, man, they are actually marriage material. It is nothing about being, let's say, culture actually coped into doing something, right? They already are very, very beautiful. Their bodies are intact. You know what I'm saying? A lot of them are conditioned to be wives. You know what I'm saying? Women gonna be women. You know what I'm saying? But the misconception is he got that young girl only because he can control her. He's taking advantage of that young girl, right? He's just a baby. You hear all this type of stuff, right? Because once again, older women cannot date. You know what I'm saying? They hate the fact that younger women are competing with the older guys around up in age. They said, well, if this keep happening, we ain't gonna have anything, right? And this is one of the main reasons with older women. This was a thing called the cougar thing, right? They said if the men could do it, why can't we do it, right? I'm not the one to judge about an older woman and a younger man. I just tell younger men, you don't want to be in a relationship with that. That's a whole different animal. Because what's going to happen is she's going to get older. And this is going to open up. I even tell some of my friends that are older, if you're dating a younger man, you may as well just go and put a gun to your head, you know? If you're talking about being in a relationship, I'm not saying it don't work all the time, but it's different when a woman does it versus a man, right? Men, we could be older, right? Women hit a wall at a certain age, usually about 35 to 40, right? They hit that wall. And once they hit that wall, things change, right? As a man, we get better as we get older, just like fine wine. Notice the brother in the thumbnail print. He's black, and I know black don't crack. We heard that all my life, right? But look at him, right? He got a little bit of gray, a little salt, pepper, more black on his hair than gray. Look like myself. I don't have a full gray set of hair in my head. So we get better as we get older. That's the beautiful thing of it all, you know what I'm saying? That's what I like, you know? So yeah, but the age gap dating thing is something, ladies and gentlemen, that I totally condone. You know what I'm saying? I'm all for it. And if you can handle this type of thing mentally, because that's going to be the bigger test, not so much over abroad, but definitely back in the Western world. And I tell guys, don't bring them back here. Keep your future wife or girlfriend abroad. One thing to visit America, but you don't want to bring them over here to live in America, right? Because we still know that we have a lot of the laws and things where it's against the man. Unless you want to be paying out child support and alimony and all that type of stuff, it's a transfer of wealth. And certain cities or states have statute of limitations on this type of stuff. California is one of the worst cities for that kind of stuff. New York too, and I believe Illinois. These places right here, very, very liberal, and they know how to go after the man big time, though. I just say don't do it. I don't really trust any state when it comes down to marriage and all that. I would much rather take my chances overseas as opposed to be married to a woman here in America. And that's one of the reasons, gentlemen, that I never married here. I've seen men, I've seen friends, I even seen my own brother. They all went to the ugly D word, which is divorce. And it can get costly. It can get costly, gentlemen. I'm just saying. So therefore, I will say no. Do not bring her back here. There's guys that did not get the memo. They thought they were doing something by bringing her back here. Your chances of being over there in her country, because I already went over this yesterday when I did that other live, right? About abroad dating, right? You got to keep in mind, we are up in the top of the 1% when we over there in the country. We're not over here on some broke begging stuff. This means that we have an abundance access to beautiful women. And when you find the right one, because you ain't got to simp over there in these countries. The guys that simping in America, and we know why. Because like I said yesterday, who are you competing with? You're competing against who? Influencers, athletes, and billionaires, right? These are the people that you're dealing with. This is your competition. This is why you never really thought about that, huh? You never really thought about that, really. Well, some of you guys, you never really thought about that stuff. But it's absolutely true. Absolutely true. All that goes away when you go abroad to some of these countries, like I said, Philippines, Thailand, Cambodia, Laos. A lot of these places, Myanmar, what they call it, the Golden Triangle. Man, I mean, you know what I'm saying? You have your pick. And I ain't talking about no scrub women. I'm talking about beautiful women over there. Especially when you got your stuff together. They look at you other than the money, but they want to be in a loving relationship. They want to be married. And what is a better status than having a foreigner? Having a man that can provide and protect, get a house built, the whole 9 yards. Right? That's what my nephew want to do. And I ain't mad at him. I told him, man, I said, shit, you only 35. So this conversation doesn't pertain to you. But I said, one day, you know, I said, because it's not like, what is she, about 10 years younger than he is? You know, they don't even go crazy, 35, 25-year-old. They don't go as crazy over here in America like they do if you're 40, 45 years old, 50, 60 years old, right? Dating a 25-year-old, right? You can see the judgment over here. Parents are not going to like it, you know? But here's the thing about it. What man is 25 years old or 28 years old, we can go as high as 30, 35 years old, that's going to be financially stable, be able to buy a home, take care of the kids when he's just starting out in his career. Let's just keep it real. One day, you know, right now, we are those dudes, like the influencers and the athletes and the millionaires and billionaires, right? We get over there, I mean, you know, except for the locals, but the locals still ain't worried about it, because you know how many women there are in the Philippines, islands, Thailand, man, it's so many of them. The local men ain't jealous by seeing they're on with no foreigner. There's plenty of women over there. You think that we have plenty of women over here in America. It's a different cultural thing over there. It's just different in some of the other countries abroad. They're not staring at you walking down the street when you have a beautiful woman on your arm. That's the norm, right? It's the norm. And like I said, I'm gonna start doing this a little bit more so. And like I said, this is more, I'm gonna treat this more like a video than a live stream. You know what I'm saying? Because you got guys that are prideful. They don't like to admit that their love life sucks, dating life. And, you know, even if I just broke this down straight to the brothers, some of them still wouldn't admit it. They just wouldn't. I get it. I get it. But the reality is, as a black man in America, it's even worse for us, gentlemen. For you guys that are outside of the scope, as a black man, our dating pool shrinks tremendously. You just got guys that's like 40, 50 years old that don't feel comfortable trying to date these young girls. They doing it, but it's about money. It's straight sugar babies and money. It's transactional, as I mentioned yesterday. You're not even getting, there's nothing that they value, even with an older man. These young women and women in general, in America, especially as a black man, value is off the table. They just look at you with as far as the money, and that's it, right? It's sad, but it's the truth. This is exactly what has been going on. And then you have the competition with, you know, influencers, athletes, and millionaires, billionaires. That's another thing. So it doesn't really leave enough or even for a brother. Now, with you, for us white men, you guys can be able to go a little further than the brothers. You know what I'm saying? There's things that white guys, and I got friends that are white guys. It ain't about them necessarily not being able to date at all. They're gonna come in other things. So a lot of times, a lot of y'all are white guys, and let's just say this, man, y'all really let women kick y'all ass, man. You really do. You know what I'm saying? She's a boss. Happy life, happy wife, happy spouse, happy house. That's where y'all go wrong at, man. And you can tell women don't respect men like that at all. It's hard to find a conservative woman, especially young. You can find them in other countries abroad. You know, if you got the patience, South America, you know, Central America, you know what I'm saying? If you got the patience and, you know, and you don't mind, I mean, that over there doing it like that too, there's no problem. There's brothers going all over the DR, Colombia, Brazil. I mean, you know what I'm saying? So that's the thing about it. You know, I mean, you can do it and not, you know, look out of place, being laughed at or whatever case may be, because they really don't care. They understand what it is. They understand what it is, though, you know. So I wanted to bring that up. Then we're going to talk about this type of stuff because, like I said, I mean, I'm going to bring some other. I want to bring some other points to the table as well in regards to this whole you know, age gap dating type stuff. You know, thing that I you know, and I've dated some young girls before, but like I said before, over here in America, it sucks. It's lousy, man. I don't do it here. No, I will not do it here. Right? Will not do it here because of, not because it's not socially accepted. It's the fact is that it's the whole cultural thing where you got a bunch of liberal-minded ass women that they believe that they are the boss, and their job is to get in your ass, not only to get the money from you, but they feel like they want to be the boss. A friend of mine, I overheard a conversation when she was talking to her daughter. She asked her daughter some of the questions, right? And she said that because I think her daughter's studying to become an attorney, right? And she's expecting to make about $250,000 a year. So I asked her to ask her daughter how much she expects her man to make. She said, well, I asked her this before I even asked her that. I said, does she plan on having kids? She said about 2 or 3 children. Big house, right? I said, are they gonna have private school? She said, yes. I said, okay, you're here in Michigan. So how much money do you expect for you and your husband to have? It looks like I got a call coming in too, guys. I'm gonna have to cut it short. But I appreciate you. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you on the next podcast. Peace.